Hello, this is Idodmg and welcome back to the channel. In this Dwarven Realms video, I want to talk to you about the recent podcast that Craterman, creator and developer behind Dwarven Realms, alongside his twin brother Bebo. Craterman was on this podcast with Aaron Action RPG as well as Frosty. The name of their podcast is Town Portal, and I'll have the link to their full VOD down in the description below. The podcast was about 2 hours long, and I can't wait to go ahead and break it down and give you a nice little recap here today. Dwarven Realms is going to be leaving early access and entering its very first season of the launch, Season 1, on September 27th. But during the early access lifespan, they've gone through 24 seasons, a few more seasons of that if you're counting the mini seasons that they've ran. And during the early access phase, their seasons were very, very fast paced. They were oftentimes a month or less in duration, and this is because they were adding and changing, testing out different things and seeing what works, and most importantly, listening to their community about what works and what doesn't, and what improvements need to be changed. I played all the way back in February, and I took a pretty long break from it, and I'm back now, and so much has changed, and the overall quality has improved with Dwarven Realms. They also talked about an interesting thing with this game about how, and it's very true, the game's easy to pick up and play and check out. And if you have an RPG background, you're going to understand it even more. However, the game does offer depth and complexity when you start to take a step back and you look into things like crafting, your different gear modifications, the skills you're using, your offhand abilities, and also your overall build. There's loads of different setups and things to tinker with and check out in Dwarven Realms, and I also love that about the game as well. I know I mentioned the really short early access seasons, but they did ask about patch 1.0 and the launch of the game and what the season duration is going to look like moving forward. Now, these are not guaranteed, of course, but their goal is for patch 1.0 to last between 6 and 7 weeks. Again, that's not official, that's not guaranteed, that's just their goal. Now, again, everything we talk about in this video about the future and things that are coming will depend on the success of the game. On the podcast, they also talked about Season 1, of course. That's kind of the exciting thing coming to the game, right? They asked, is there going to be like a massive change or a massive new thing coming out, or is it just going to be a bunch of minor things? And Craterman did say that there's going to be a lot of changes coming in the 2 Chaos Weeks and then also into patch 1.0. He did mention there's a new system they may test out yet before launch, or they may wait to release at launch, or maybe even after. We didn't even get a solid date, and we don't even know exactly what the system is, but there's plenty of stuff to talk about here that they did mention that is coming, hopefully, at some point. Well, I think it's awesome that they're coming up with a lot of new things. I'm assuming new modifiers for gear, maybe crafting stuff, bunch of new changes. And the really cool thing with the modifiers is that's kind of really what helps determine your build in a sense. I mean, there's way more to it than that, obviously, but it's awesome they're going to be adding all these things. But my concern is game-breaking bugs at launch. I mean, that could hinder the game's initial rating on Steam, but hopefully they get all the bugs ironed out. You got to remember, we the players are the testers historically through early access. So I want to wish them the best of luck on their launch, though, and that they have a really solid start and that the game just blows up and they have wild success, because I personally really enjoy playing Dwarven Realms. There's some things that are in the works that are yet to come. We don't really have a hard timeline on really any of these, but they're hoping to, during these next 2 Chaos Weeks, to get, so I think he even mentioned next week, as the time recording, that next week we're going to see some changes to the cards. Cards are an important part of the game that really help you kind of customize your character. These are ways to really get a power spike for your character. And I think I have a card guide video out. Make sure you check out the Dwarven Realms guide playlist for that. But they're going to add new cards. That'll be pretty awesome to see. And of course, new mods. And those mods, as I said, will help bring up new builds. For example, right now there's a mod in the game called Shroud, where whenever you move, you get these stacks of Shroud. And then you can get other things that, you know, synergize up with the Shroud status as well. But anyway, before we rabbit hole too much here, another really awesome thing they're talking about adding to the game is new stances. Stances in the game just means what weapon you're using. Currently in the game, there is one-handed, two-handed, mauls, spears, bows, and magery. I believe that's everything in the game currently. There's 3 stances coming down the pipe. Again, we don't have an exact time on this. This, I'm guessing, is after patch 1.0, but Again, no confirmed timeline, but they're talking about adding a necromancer stance, a bard stance, as well as a shapeshifter stance. Pretty awesome stuff. Can't wait to see it. And they're always adding quality of life updates as well, but crafting right now especially needs a lot of love. I don't want to get super in depth with it here, but basically right now it's a lot of work to sort your inventory and to figure out what's an upgrade and what's not, because in order to see a full affix, you have to go to the workbench and see what you can alter it to anyway. And on top of that, you can't see the ranges the affixes can roll. There's more to it than that. We're not going to get all into it right now, but quality of life in that regard is being worked on as well. They also asked about castle customization. Now, the castle is your home fort, basically. Think of it as like your hideout in Path of Exile. And they basically asked if you'll be able to kind of place down your crafting stations and stuff like that. Short answer was yes. Long answer, well, pretty much was there's no specific timeline, although it doesn't seem that difficult. I think they just, it's two guys making this game and they have a long list of things they want to do with this game. So they also talked about PvP. That was pretty much a no. And they also asked about multiplayer. They did mention, and again, this is a way out. They talked about having a fellowship kind of hall or a hub. Or your fellowships are basically like guilds. In Dwarven Realms, they're called fellowships. So they talked about kind of having a hub where you can meet up with your fellowship and trade and stuff like that. And then way down the line, if the game's wildly successful and have the resources, eventually, hopefully, multiplayer. Again, it just seemed very far down the road, and nothing's promised quite yet. So just a couple closing thoughts here on this whole podcast. And that was a lot of information I just threw at you. They did also touch on progression. If you're a new player, or maybe you are just getting started on the game, or maybe you haven't picked it up yet, thanks for watching the video. I appreciate you hanging out with me here today. But they did talk about progression and kind of what's in the game currently and what's considered endgame. I think I mentioned it earlier in the video, but if not, basically a rupture is you go in and it's an arena of enemies. And once you kill enough monsters, you have enough essence, you go and kill the boss. That's one rupture. It starts at rupture 1 and it goes up as high as you possibly want to. Now, rupture 1 through 30 is kind of the beginner, the introductory story ruptures that's kind of here in the middle of the map. There's not like a lot of lore in the game or anything yet, but then once you get to, I think it's rupture 31, and a little bit higher, you go to the outside islands around. There's 6 different islands on the edge of the map. And you also see different dungeons on the map as well. There's lots to dig into in this game. Ruptures 31 to about 80 or 100 is what Creator said. In my mind, once I've hit rupture 100, then I feel like I've started the true end game. But yeah, your ruptures 1 to 30 is kind of beginner ruptures. 31 to 80 or 100 is mid game, I guess. And then past rupture 100 is your end game, where you're digging into all the different endgame dungeons, the Olympus, and Bridge of the Demigods. Lots of endgame, lots of things to check out in this game as we've talked about so far. I just want to share a few closing thoughts with you here about Dwarven Realms and the team behind it, really. Creatorman on this podcast was very, very humble. He was given many opportunities to talk trash about other games and really build his game up. And there was 2 or 3 different times he was asked why Dwarven Realms is better than this game. Why is it better than that game? And he stayed so humble and respectful, and most importantly to me, honest. He kept expectations in check. He blatantly admitted that this game may not be for everyone. Some people love the game and stick with the game, but it just might not be for everyone. Maybe it's just based on the fast-paced seasons, or maybe like currently during early access, it's not been the most stable experience. It's definitely improved since I played in February, but there are people that love the game. Again, easy to pick up, hard to master type of game. And he also admitted that Dwarven Realms is not as polished as other AAA games. One game he mentioned was Elden Ring, and he just said the game's not as polished as Elden Ring, which is very obvious if you've seen any of the gameplay. But just to see an indie dev just blatantly just honest and really, really humble about his project, I really appreciated the honesty from Creatorman. He seemed so chill, relaxed, and comfortable, and just happy to be there and talk about his passion project that him and his brother are working on together. Overall, it was a great podcast. Again, the full VOD is down in the description if you do want to check it out. If you haven't picked up Dwarven Realms yet, I do recommend it. It's only $10 on Steam. They were asked about pay to win, and pay to win is never a thing. It is not pay to win, never will be. And they also promised to keep the game very affordable. It is $10 on Steam. It used to only be $5. They had to bump it up for whatever reason, but $10 for this game. I've already got about 300 hours in the game and I think I got the game gifted to me from Woot Link way back in the day. Thanks again, dude. So yeah, for $10 on Steam, you can pick up the game. Definitely recommend at least checking it out. I'll have the link for Dwarven Realms on Steam in the link below as well. That's going to wrap it up for this Dwarven Realms podcast recap video. Thank you again to Aaron Action RPG and Frosty for hosting the Town Portal podcast with Crater Man. Hopefully you found this video useful and or entertaining. If so, don't forget that like button and subscribe to the channel if you think I've earned it. Please consider becoming a YouTube channel member today. But don't forget, your view alone means the absolute world. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.